There were two profound moments actually that really kind of changed the course of my life. The first one was when I first discovered the magical powers of yoga. Yoga taught me how to be truly present. I really developed a very deep connection to myself. I could probably say I kind of like fell in love with who I was through that process of really taking that time for myself on my yoga mat. And then, when you're facing some really difficult times, I really learned through yoga that there was strength in something so simple as my breath. Yoga was the first thing that really changed the trajectory of my life. The second was when we lost our son. It's been 11 years and our lives were forever changed. But coming out of that, I really discovered that no matter what happens to us, we never lose our ability to be happy, to be joyful, to be loving. And
welcome to Unmute with Priya, the podcast where silence ends, voices rise, and women rediscover the freedom to speak and live authentically, especially in life after 40. This show is proudly sponsored by Project Icon. I'm your host, Priya Sudarsanam. Let's dive into today's conversation. Today on Unmute with Priya, I'm talking with MaryBeth Tipton. She's a yoga teacher, author, and the founder of Yoga Living. MaryBeth's work is about helping people move from surviving to actually experiencing joy. And her book, Journey to Joy, comes out of her own life story of loss, healing, and rediscovering her voice. MaryBeth, welcome to my show. Let's unmute together.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, so your book is called Journey to Joy, as I mentioned, but that journey started with a lot of loss and hardship. So what was the moment in your life where you realized you had to start rebuilding yourself differently?
Well, there were two profound moments actually that really kind of changed the course of my life. The first one was when I first discovered the magical powers of yoga. And, yoga taught me how to be truly present. I really developed a very deep connection to myself. I could probably say I kind of like fell in love with who I was.
Yeah.
Through that process of really taking that time for myself on my yoga mat. And then, when you're facing some really difficult times, I really learned through yoga that there was strength in something so simple as my breath. And yoga was the first thing that really changed the trajectory of my life. The second was when we lost our son. It's been 11 years. And our lives were forever changed. But coming out of that, I really discovered that no matter what happens to us, we never lose our ability to be happy, to be joyful, to be loving. And, in the beginning, I wasn't sure I was going to survive that. My husband was going to get through it, if our marriage would get through that. And, I was committed to becoming better from it and not bitter. Because there's just some things you'll just never understand. Yeah. And so that really put me on a whole new path 11 years ago. And that was around the same time, 13 years ago, that I discovered yoga.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing part of your journey there. When you talk about surviving and thriving, share a little bit more about that journey for you. What was the hardest part of that transition emotionally? Because sometimes you hear a lot, especially with social media and today, people think that it can just happen overnight, that go from surviving to thriving. What was that journey like for you?
Oh my goodness, healing is just not something that's linear, and it's something that you never, like grief is something that you really never get over. You'll always have it, it's always there, and you're always continually healing. So just accepting that is now part of your life. Everyone has a story, everyone's been through so many things, but it's those moments, those experiences, tragedies, traumas, whatever you want to call it, label it, it's those times that really bring you to your knees, where those moments can be so impactful and profound that those are the opportunities for your greatest growth. And I think it's it's not like I hadn't had loss before. I had a life full of loss. I had already, by the time we had lost Larry Jr., we had already lost my sister and my dad in the same year to cancer. And so I thought I was pretty good at, rolling with loss, and nothing kind of prepares you for losing a child. And Larry Jr. was my stepson. I had been his other mom since he was 7. Often he referred to me as mom. Not that he didn't have one, he did. He had a great mom.
Yeah.
I was like a bonus mom, and there's nothing that really prepares you for that. And throughout that process in the beginning, I'm going to say I wasn't really sure that my husband was going to make it through. I'd never seen him in such a fragile state. I wasn't sure our marriage would survive it. Most marriages don't. And so we are better and stronger and happier in a sense of our joy is so important to us now. We're not going to let stupid things rob us of that.
Yeah.
And so 11 years later, we're just a testament to resilience and to joy.
Yeah, and it just also speaks highly to the fragility of life, that we really have to not take life for granted and learn to live in joy. When you said that, I think about how much time I already spent today on meaningless stuff and thoughts. So thank you for bringing me back to that.
Yeah.
I want to talk about Yoga Living. I love the name of the business, and it brought me back to a book that I got years ago, and then you're reminding me that's on my shelf, and it was Living Your Yoga. I think that's the name of the book.
Yes.
So,
yeah, I read that one. Yes. And it might have, I just got goosebumps. I'm covered in them. It might have even had something to do with the naming of my business, but yes, Yoga Living. So there's yoga instructors and then there's yoga teachers. I find a distinct difference between people who instruct and people who teach.
Okay.
And when I think of the word teach, I feel compassion. When I think of the word instruct, I feel like someone's telling me what to do.
Yeah.
And so I call myself a teacher, not an instructor. And throughout my own yoga journey, prior to ever teaching, I started doing yoga just to support a friend who drugged me in my first yoga class. And I remember being a downward facing dog, and I was like, oh my God, this is so hard. I'm like, I had no idea. I'm this out of shape. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I wasn't heavy or anything, but I was like, this is a lot of work. And then, I really just went to support her, and I was like, I kind of like this, and I liked the challenge. And so I just kind of kept with it, and I just kept thinking of the physical benefit. And then I started to realize, oh my gosh, there's so much more to this beautiful practice of moving our bodies and breathing and being mindful and present. And then I decided, I'm going to do more, and I'm going to take different classes and try different teachers and different styles. And I went crazy with it. And then right in the middle of all of that, we lost Larry Jr. And it was months before I could even get on my mat.
Wow.
And then when I had the strength to return to my mat, there was such profound healing that was happening in that hour, that I got to just be with myself and my own grief, where I wasn't worried about my husband, my other children. I didn't have to be superwoman. Yeah. I could just be with my own misery and sadness. And things just started moving through me on my mat. And during those times, it was incredible. So once I got back on my mat and I started healing and breathing and learning and reading, and that book was one of them. And I remember going to my husband and telling him, like, I'm going to become a yoga teacher. I need to share this with other people. They need to see that this is a gift. This is an incredible practice. It's not an exercise, and so I went through my teacher trainings, and I just was a sponge. I couldn't learn enough. And then when I had to form my business, Yoga Living, and come up with the name, Yoga Living it came to me so quickly, because I learned that yoga is not just about the asana that's on the mat for an hour. It's about the hardest part of yoga is living your practice off the mat. And so I just kept walking off my mat and trying to live everything I was learning in that hour.
Yeah.
And so my business is amply named Yoga Living, because it really is about living the practice, not just doing it. It's embodying it.
And you answered one of my next questions, which is great. No, this is why I said we get to just talk. A lot of people think that yoga is exercise or just stretching. It's just the physical part of it, and they don't realize the deeper aspects of it. And so
it's really funny that you say the word stretching, because in January I had to visit my cardiologist just for like a little well check. And he said, "Are you still doing yoga?" And I said, "Yes." And he was talking in his little voice recorder, and he says, "And she's still stretching." And I just burst out laughing, because I was like, this guy has no idea what I can do with my body, and how strong I am. But he called it stretching. He's like, "She's still stretching with her yoga." And I was
That's hilarious.
I just burst out laughing. I'm sure I'm on my microphone. He's probably thinking, like, when he was re-listening, like listening to do his notes, like, why is she laughing? It's like, he has no clue.
This podcast is Unmute with Priya. So we talk a lot about unmuting and what that means to just, it's essentially somebody or something, whether, who knows how far back, press the mute button on you. So you stop living according to who you are, your soul level. You stop being authentic, or you're living inauthentically. You're saying things to make other people happy. So was there a moment when you realized you'd been living quietly or holding back parts of yourself?
Absolutely, there was. And it was, again, all through the additional trainings that I was doing, and the books that I was reading, and not just the people that you surround yourself with, but by really picking the right books up off the shelves, and reading and learning and discovering. And then, you also kind of hit that middle part of your adult life, and you're kind of doing sometimes what's expected of you, or you get caught up in people pleasing, or sometimes you just don't speak up. Although I've always been someone who's always kind of spoken my mind, though.
Okay.
So I can't really say that was me, because I've always pretty much spoken my mind, and not always in the best time. But yes, things really shifted for me when I started learning and reading more, and really gotten into the self-help genre of books. And then one day it was just like, I don't know, it might have been when I hit menopause, I said, I no longer give a shit what people think about me. It was like, I just was like, you know what? I'm going to be my authentic self. I am going to create my way of being that is aligned with how I want to show up for myself, how I want to show up for my family, how I want to show up for my friends. Like it, don't like it, don't care.
Yeah.
And I just, that's what I did. I began setting intentions daily, weekly, monthly, yearly. It's about a 10-year practice now, where I've been setting a yearly intention that I cultivate every day throughout the year. Sometimes it's a success, sometimes I fail greatly at it. And it's a one word. One year it was joy. Years ago, one of my first yearly intentions was cultivating joy in my life. It's like, my intention is joy. And sometimes it wasn't easy, and I've had several. Peace. Sometimes they come to me and I'm like, why is abundance coming to me? What does that even mean? And then I'm like, a couple months into the year, I was like, oh, now I know why. I need to think more abundantly. I already have everything I need. I need to stop thinking from a place of lack and start looking from a place of abundance. Oh, okay, I get why abundance came to me, But I have this little practice at the end of every year. And I take inventory of the year. So I spend a couple days in solitude without anybody, all by myself, and I begin to journal and reflect on the year. I reflect on winning moments, things I learned, I reflect on opportunities missed, things that I could have learned and I didn't because my ego was in the way or emotions got in the way. Who I need to apologize to, kind of like the Jewish, like at Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur or whatever. It's like an atonement. It's you know.
Yeah.
And so I do this thing at the end of the year. I take inventory of the year and I study and self-reflect on how well I cultivated my intention, and then from there I set an intention for the following year.
It's a beautiful practice. Beautiful practice. Yeah.
It is really intention setting is, it's like it takes you off of cruise control and really puts you in the driver's seat of your life.
Yeah, I love that, the way that you say that, because I think a lot of times we do have cruise control, and it could be for years and years and years, and then when
it's so easy, right?
Control of that, like I've been actually driving without cruise control and saying, let me actually use the accelerator, and it's a completely different ballgame. I'm like more present when I'm driving. But it's a great metaphor to use. And the guest that I had before, we were talking about forgetting things at midlife, and we just mid-sentence we kept saying, what was I talking about? So I actually remember what I was going to say before it came back to me. So how you said about that life, the practice really starts once you get off the mat. You have your practice on your mat, and then it all starts. And that just reminds me of going to these retreats. I've gone to some intensive plant medicine retreats. It's great. You're in a little bubble for 9 days, 12 days, and the real work starts as soon as it's done, and you're out and facing people and facing life. So thank you for that reminder.
The real work happens when you encounter that first asshole, right? You're just like,
oh gosh, yeah.
We went. I had 6 friends visiting me this week. I brought 6 of my girlfriends into my home for 5 days to entertain them and give them the Florida experience. And we were at the beach for a day. We were on the boat for a day, and we just had a wonderful, fantastic time. And then last night, and I also made reservations for all these restaurants that they'd never been to before, so I can just keep introducing them to new places. And so the very last night they were here, I had a reservation at a highly coveted restaurant downtown Fifth Avenue in Naples. And our reservation was for 7:30, and we got there early because the person who was driving the big old Suburban of all of us, she hates to be late, and we had made her late the night before by like 3 minutes, and she was all stressed out, and I didn't want her to be stressed on her vacation, so I was like, we're gonna leave early. So we get down there early, which was not the night to be early because the restaurant was just packed and they were falling apart and they were late. And so we went to the bar, and they had a guy on the piano playing that looked just like Samuel L. Jackson. I couldn't get over. I kept looking. I was like, is that Samuel L. Jackson? Like, it just looked just like him, hat and all. And so we went up to the bar. We had a drink, and everybody was like, okay with like waiting a few minutes. But next thing you know, we're a half hour past our reservation time. Okay. And so we went to the hostess stand, and she said, yeah, we're still not ready, and blah blah blah. And we're like, okay, well, there are other people that were coming in the door, and other people that came in the door around the time we were, and they were not anywhere near as kind and accepting as we were. But we were like, we don't want to be those people. This is who we are. This is how we show up for ourselves and for other people. We are going to extend kindness. We're not going to be mean, and we're not going to be angry. Yeah. And then at about 8:15, a couple of people got a little hangry. Now we're 45 minutes past our reservation time. Now we've been there for an hour. We're getting hangry. We cannot have another drink without food. But the manager came over and he said, I'm going to buy you guys appetizers. I'm going to buy, we'll be we'll be with you. And then they finally sat us. And I remember sitting there at the table and looking at the women that I surround myself with. And I was so proud of them because nobody got angry. We were hungry. But nobody got angry. Nobody got in a bad mood. Nobody started getting pissy or complaining, or we just rolled with it. Yeah. And it was okay. Everything ended up being okay. We got 3 free appetizers. We got a free baked Alaska dessert, which is the best baked Alaska on the planet. And we had a fantastic night. And so that is part of living your yoga practice. Like, that's part of like living And those successful examples of how you want to create yourself and show up for yourself and for other people by when it's really challenging, when it's so easy to just get upset and you're just like, what good's it going to do?
Right. Right.
What good is it?
What a great example. Yeah. I mean, and seems like there's an alignment with living your yoga and living from your heart and compassionately, because being angry is not going to support anyone, but being
I don't want to be angry.
Yeah.
I don't want to be, I don't want to be angry.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's
Yeah.
just not, I mean, trust me, there's lots of moments that are opportunities where I can be angry.
Yeah.
But oftentimes I don't want to be angry. I want to be peaceful. So it's like, okay, well, how do I deal with this? How do I flow through that? How do I, overcome the anger?
Wow. Let's talk about your book, Journey to Joy. So writing a memoir can be incredibly vulnerable. What did you find out about yourself as you were writing this book?
Oh, boy. Several things. One, I thought the timing of writing the book, I was ready to write it. I thought that I had not mastered, but pretty much had done the healing, and only to find out while writing it, I was still healing. I was still discovering a few things about myself throughout the process that I had to sit with and take time to just pause and be with and feel. I learned that writing a book is not glamorous at all.
Yeah.
It's so hard. I did not start writing my book with confidence. I'm not a good enough writer. I'm not a good enough writer. That not good enough always just, that's my false belief. That's the story that I tell myself that comes up all the time, that I have to completely work on every day of my life. And so I was so critical, and then finally I just had to let that go and just trust that I'm gonna do the best I can with what I have right now and where I'm at in my life right now, and just hope and pray that this book lands in the hands of the right person that needs it.
Yeah.
It's an inspirational memoir, but it's not a book that's just all about me. It's the way I tried to structure the book really is for anyone. It can be for the hurt, the broken, the neglected, the single parent, the divorcee. It can be for someone grieving. It will have something in it that can resonate with just about everyone.
Yeah.
And I talk a lot about emotions in the book. I do talk about false beliefs, that false narrative that we sometimes have to ignore. We have that voice that's in our head sometimes. I talk about that, and just understanding that feelings need to be felt. Emotions need to be validated, but not every feeling needs to be acted upon. Sometimes you can just feel your feels without acting upon them. And then, in the book I talk about, recreating your way of being. So I want to help people really learn how they can start to recreate their way of being. And each chapter ends with like 3 self-inquiry questions, that kind of a workbook style that they can kind of start working through. And then at the end, there's a few more. But yeah, in the process of writing the book, I had a medical illness that was a major setback that just came out of nowhere, and that was tough. And
Yeah.
And then, getting published is not easy, and
Right.
I wasn't patient in the process. I didn't send enough inquiries to. I had gotten to the point where I want to move on and get this off my plate, and I'm just going to self-publish the book and just trust that it lands in the right hands of the people who really need it. And so writing a book, it's not glamorous. It's tough.
It sounds like
It can
you
be
were
really
living
a
your
messy
yoga through this
process.
stuff. Yeah, it sounds like you were living your yoga through this process as well.
I was trying. I wasn't always patient. Yeah, I was really self-critical, and some days the words just flew down on on the screen, and then other days I'm like, what am I doing again?
Yeah.
Why am I doing this?
Yeah, but I think having those self-inquiry questions can really, I know that what it does for me, it just really, even if I don't journal on it, it definitely gives me that pause to actually reflect and say, okay, where am I doing this in my life? How is this showing up? And what is it doing to me? What is it doing to others? So that sounds like a very powerful tool that you have in the book. And then with Yoga Living, so tell us a little bit more about how people can work with you, and in what capacity do you work with people? Is it online? Is it in person?
So during COVID, I started having to teach online, and build a little community from that. And coming out of COVID, people were really liking, they were getting used to that. Yes, people kind of wanted the connection back in the studio too, but that pandemic really offered another avenue for me to reach people online that can't come to a studio, or whose job hours changed or whatever. So coming out of COVID, I created an online website where I pre-record yoga classes, and I add them every month to my website. So right now I have 300 classes on my website.
300.
I have 30-minute and 60-minute. I have anything from beginner to power. I have meditations. I have breath practices. So there's 300 classes online, and you can, anyone with a membership can have anytime unlimited access to all of it. And it's only $25 a month.
That's it. That's incredible. And what is your website? So we'll make sure to put that in the show.
It's yogalivingllc.com.
yogalivingllc.com. Yeah. So we'll
Yes.
make sure to put the links to your website, as well as where they can purchase the book, in the show notes.
I appreciate that. You can also go to MaryBeth Tipton, my full name, MaryBethTipton.com. It'll take you there as well.
Okay.
The links to purchase the book, whether it be through Book Baby Publisher or through Amazon, are right there on the website as well.
Great.
There is a become a member on the website for anyone interested in trying to do the online classes for $25 a month. You can cancel anytime. And for your listeners, they get the first month free.
Amazing.
So all they have to do at checkout is put in the code Yoga Trial, one word, Yoga Trial, and they get their first month free.
Incredible. Well, thank you so much for the gift for anybody who's listening to this. I hope people take advantage of that.
I hope so.
So there's something, as you're talking, and coming from the culture where yoga came from, I find that there's this very down to earthedness when you talk about yoga that really resonates with me. One of the things that has been challenging for me is in this spiritual world where, and especially post-COVID, where people were going through awakenings, that there was just this yoga to be so complicated and speaking in terms that I didn't even understand. And so share a little bit more about what sets you apart, because I can already tell what sets you apart, but I want you to brag on yourself.
Yeah, so again, I'm a teacher, not an instructor.
Yeah.
So I begin my classes with just getting people present and grounded on their mat, giving their minds a chance to catch up to their bodies, landing on their mat. And I theme all my classes. So like every class has some sort of theme to it, and it's not always around a yoga pose. A tenth of my classes might be around a particular yoga pose that we might be really working on at during that class. But most of my classes are themed about living your yoga practice. So I weave in inspiration to all of my classes. So I use those moments on your mat when you're wanting to come out of a pose. That's when you need to stay in it. So I get people to their edge, to the little place of discomfort where they can start to learn that they're capable of doing more than what they think they are. I challenge them, but I also like allow them to be where they are on that day, because we all have setbacks, we all have injuries. So it's not comparing yourself to your former self, you know, it's just really truly loving and accepting who you are today for showing up on your mat today. And so my inspiration, it's 300 classes of different themes. I
Love it.
I mean, pretty much everything, and I just kind of like weave it in when I'm teaching. And then toward the end of the class, I will be more heavy on the inspiration when I get you down in like half pigeon pose. You know, I'll get you to start thinking when you're in that last stretch and opening about the theme and how that might be showing up for you in your life, and what that might look like if you cultivate that, and what that might feel like for not just yourself but the people around you. And so I plant these little seeds in my teaching when I'm teaching, and then I weave it into calling out a bunch of poses. For instance, like I read a Wayne Dyer book, right? And he says in this book, what could be possible for you if you were open to everything and attached to nothing? And I was just like, whoa, one sentence.
Yeah.
What could be possible if you're open to everything and attached to nothing? And I was like, I'm putting that in one of my yoga classes.
Yeah.
So I spent like a whole yoga class, you know, like reminding you, like, what could be possible right now if you weren't attached to how you look in the shape, like how you look in the pose? What could be possible for you if you're not attached to that and you're truly open to discovering, you know? So just little things like that. Like sometimes it's just something I read, or a conversation I have with somebody, or, you know, sometimes my students will say, will you build a class around, you know, acceptance and being enough? I want to feel like I'm enough, you know, and I'm like, done, you know. And one of my, I don't want to say oldest, one of my higher in age students, she is 72. She is 72.
Wow.
She was on her mat with me every week. I just had a conversation with her on the phone a couple weeks ago, and she was telling me that from years of being a paralegal and typing, she's got arthritis in her thumbs. And she was telling me, she goes, I just want to share with you, like, how you have taught me to modify poses, you know. And so instead of always being like on my hands, I've been doing this, this, and this, and I'm still like able to do everything.
Amazing.
And I've been modifying, you know, and you know, I can hear you saying to me, like, you know, do it this way, or you can always do it like this, and that's okay. And she said, and by the way, she's 72 and she can do the arm balance of crow.
Wow.
She's 72.
Okay.
I have
I'm
other
impressed.
students that are like 10 years younger than her, and they say she's my hero. They're like, they look up to her, because we used to, when we were doing in-person classes, they'd like look at her and be like, and the thing is that her boss, who I actually went to high school with his brother, he's the attorney she worked for.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so her boss was doing my yoga classes once a week, and he drug her to her first yoga class with me.
Amazing.
Right? And she has
testimony.
just, yeah, and like, and so like I said, she's 72, she's on her mat with me every week.
Well, I can tell you, just from you sharing and bragging on yourself, that's what sets you apart. Because, the way that you described how you do a yoga class, how you share, and how it's about living your yoga off the mat is really unique. And so I can't wait for more people to access your website.
I think sometimes we are only as good as our teachers, and I have had some incredible teachers.
Yeah.
I've had some excellent mentors. And just like our parents, I've had examples and I've had warnings. So I've had examples of how I want to be, and I've had warnings of how I don't want to be. So, you know, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to teach like that, right? So I've just tried to create really what's aligned with me and what I want to teach and how I want to teach it. And my students do get a head to toe workout, though. They get a head to toe workout, but they leave their mat stronger, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, and spiritually.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. This sounds so transformative.
Thank you.
So in closing, I feel like we could keep talking and talking. There's so much to this. If for the woman who's listening to this episode, what words, and that they might be in a place of transition, they might be going through that negative self-talk, they might be going through a very painful chapter in their life, anything. What words do you have for them to hear right now?
I would tell her to please pick up my book. Learning and self-discovery never end for those with a growth mindset. And I would tell her to value each experience, learn from the past, like all of life experiences and how you have processed them does affect the quality of your life. So, it's never too late to start valuing each and every experience from here on, and see them as opportunities to learn about yourself, learn about how you want to show up for yourself and how you want to show up for other people. It's never too late to correct that course. It's never too late to recreate the life that you want. It's never too late. And make joy a priority. Joy is an aspect of freedom, and it's something that should be cultivated and protected. I protect my joy like it's Fort Knox. And I was reading another incredible book with the Dalai Lama and the Archbishop Desmond Tutu. And Desmond Tutu, he describes joy as a generosity of spirit and becoming an oasis of peace and a pool of serenity that just ripples out to other people. And when I read that in that book, it really changed how I behold joy. Because by embracing joy, it's like I'm feeling it for someone else's benefit, not just my own. And it's always with me. And I've been told that my joy is contagious. And
Absolutely.
So I certainly hope it is, because I hope everybody that listens to this gets it.
I have definitely received it. So.
But my friends, they're just they've seen a lot of what I've been through, and it's my joy, my peace is I protect it like it's Fort Knox.
I'm gonna hope
I'm not
that.
letting anyone rob me of that.
What a way to end. Thank you, MaryBeth, for sharing this space with me, for having this conversation. It's the perfect example of unmuting. I mean, every guest that I have on here is unmuting in different ways, but thank you for so much for sharing your gift with us today.
Thank you for having me. I truly appreciate the opportunity to speak with you, and you have a beautiful smile.
Thank you.
You do. You have such a beautiful smile.
Thank you.
So.
And this show is brought to you by Project Icon.